Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Ctrl+Alt+Delete with Lisa Duerre is a no BS conversation with one of the top female executives who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always-on, never good enough, will replace you today machine called the tech space, this show's for you. Here's Lisa.
Everybody, we are here. Ctrl+Alt+Delete. You're in the right spot. And you're in the right spot because I have a sneaking suspicion you may be feeling at times lately, why can't I be more motivated? You know, I should do this, I should do that, whether it's work or home. I know, at least for me and the clients I've been talking to, people are feeling stuck and really down on themselves. Like, I should be more resilient. I should get more done. And I have the greatest gift I could give you today. It's my own mindset coach, someone who I respect and admire, who has helped me get unstuck. And I can't keep her to myself. It can't be a secret anymore. So Ani Anderson, welcome to Ctrl+Delete.
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction.
I know, right? I'm so excited. Listen, you know, I bring guests on that I know, like, and trust. And yes, we have a personal relationship. You've helped me a lot. And I have to share you with the world. I can't keep you a secret. It's just a secret to me. When I think about what life has been like for me in this past year and some of the stuck spots I've had as a business owner, as a mom, as a wife, I mean, you've seen me through it all. And thank you for your time today. I mean, I'm just really thrilled you're here. And I want to jump right in so people can feel less stuck.
Let's go.
Okay, so here's the official intro, right, for everybody listening in. So Ani Anderson is the CEO of New Health, and her company helps to unlock people's innate motivation, so success comes naturally. Can I get an amen? Anybody want some of that? Right?
High five, yes.
No. So I'm just gonna go right there, Ani. Like, how does that work? Like, what's your secret sauce?
The secret sauce is getting to really know somebody. Period, hard stop.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And most of us have difficulty. I think all of us have difficulty really tapping into that because there is this, we call it the acorn. There is this acorn of who you really are that lives in your mind, in your subconscious mind, that, by the way, does not live between your two ears. It is your whole entire being, your body, your heart, your gut, your brain too, all of it. And it gets covered up through the process of learning what it means to be human by the people who teach us what it means to learn to be human. It's such a natural process. And it's also a natural process for us to uncover that and really find out who we are.
Okay. So number one, we're talking about people in tech, right? And I know, you know, being human is really hard in tech. Right? We are we are writing code, we are solving technical issues, and our brains are going left and right. And yes, we're creative and innovative and very logical, right? But you know, to be human at work has been one of my soapboxes for this last year about what that really means to have a high-performing team. So when you're thinking about people in the land of tech, which I know you work with, and you think about getting to know them and helping with this uncovering the acorn, are there any? I mean, I know we're all unique, but I also know there's some, I guess, high-level pull-throughs or themes that might show up. So can you give us an example or some thoughts on, you know, that tech leader who's really brilliant with all the engineering components, running a large team now and trying to figure out how to be more human and not even knowing how to do that to be able to have more success?
Absolutely. So we're talking about people, right, Lisa? I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah.
We're talking about people. These people, these team members, they eat lunch. Yeah.
Yep. They do.
They drink things, right?
Oh, they go like coffee. Yep. We got them. Yep.
They go to the bathroom, right? Okay.
At least as I've been told.
Maybe. We've got to like make sure we're on that same page. And I'm kidding, not kidding.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who eat food and go to the bathroom and go to sleep and things like that. And we need to remember this is a part of who we are because we do some amazing things in tech, incredible things. And We're people who have a body. We live in a container. I saw you just pick up your cup. You've got coffee in your coffee cup. I've got water in my water.
I've
right?
got both. I'm double fisting it today, you know.
I've got my tea.
Yeah.
What we're picking up, Lisa, is containers. Okay. Containers for the amazing things that are in these containers. The amazing things that are in us are in a container. It's a body. And, you know, we have tools and capacities to tap into these containers, these bodies that, by the way, don't just carry around our heads. There's amazing wisdom in them. There's energy, Lisa. There's energy in these bodies. And we can ask very simple questions that help us to tap into that energy. We can have conversations that help us to tap into that energy. And when we can have some of those higher level conversations, by the way, for example, with how do you feel right now? Or when you said that, where did you feel that? That's not a weird question. When we're really genuinely curious about the experience that people are having in their bodies, we can tap into amazing energy potentials that do not exist when you don't do that.
So, you know, it's interesting with your answer. We are, I mean, yes, the container, right? And the tech lives, you know, neck up.
Yep.
Right. Having been there my whole career. And when I burnt out, I was so disconnected from everything below. There were so many warning signs.
Yeah.
And so when I'm thinking about asking, where do you feel it? Right. Like, so my emergency room visit, I was working really late. I had the pain up the arm, one up the neck. And I'm thinking, I think that's like the beginnings of a heart attack. It was below my neck.
Yeah.
I might want to go to that hospital. And I told
Something's
my colleague,
going on down there.
I told my colleague, this really big presentation's due tomorrow to executive staff, right, on this project we're working on. But, you know, this thing's going on. So I'm going to bring my laptop and just run on down to the emergency room, check it out, and I'll be back. And she's like, God bless, you know, my colleagues who can pay attention. Yeah, no, if you think you're having a heart attack, I'm driving you. Number one, you don't want to kill anybody. Yeah. And then number two, you probably aren't doing that presentation tomorrow. And I'd like to offload that. You know, I want to go with you and make sure you can chill. And, you know, anyway, we have a picture of us in the emergency room. I said, let's take a picture, you know, while I'm waiting for my results. Like, let's send it to the peeps and let them know we're still working. Like, this matters. Like the badge of honor. And I still have the photo. And what I want to say to you is, you know, where did I feel it? If someone had said, how do you feel right now? You know, I was scared. Yeah. I was like denying what was going on. I felt responsible that I was letting my company down. Yeah. I felt really worried about my family. Like, holy crap, what if I don't come home? But I don't want to freak them out. Like I had all these feelings. Yeah. So if someone was like me in that moment of trying to keep it all, what would a better question have been for me to ask myself in the moment?
Well, I actually want to back up just a second for leaders hearing this. They might be like, dude, she's talking about opening up Pandora's box. You've got to be freaking crazy to ask somebody how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so we don't. And so from an expert standpoint, you know, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be so horrible and scary when you ask somebody how they feel. Because what's going on in the person who asks that question, how do you feel, Lisa? What's going on in a lot of people's minds is, I will have no idea how to fix whatever comes out of their mouth.
Totally. Yeah, I know. It's so scary to ask, because what if you have to do something?
What if I have to do something and I can't, or I don't know how? It's such a scary question. And what could come out of their mouth could be so vulnerable. I might not even know how to deal with whatever they say in my life, but it really comes down to this, like, I won't be able to fix it. And my God, we don't need that. What we need is human beings asking human beings if they're okay, or how do you feel? And actually being in a place where fixing isn't what we're going for. We're simply going for being human with another human. That actually fixes a lot, is the magic that lives on the other side of this.
There is magic on the other side of that. And I want to stay with you on this, because how many conversations have I had with leaders where they're worried I don't want someone to cry. Like,
Yeah, heck yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What if they like tell me like they're thinking of quitting? What do I do? Like all of the worries, like all the stories you can make up in yourself. And crying is healing. So I've had conversations like this, and I want to tie it together with what you're saying, because not only do we have to ask ourselves, how are we feeling? But you're saying the leader, right? So
Yeah.
my story about how was I feeling then, but as a leader or even a colleague, like my colleague saying, how are you? I really didn't answer her, but she still took action, right? She still took care of me. She still made sure I was safe. And, I think if you can bring your heart to work, which I believe is important, asking someone how they are is magical. It makes you feel cared about. It makes you feel important.
You're bringing your heart to work anyway, Lisa, is the thing. We're all bringing our hearts to work.
Well, we may be transporting it in our body.
Right.
Okay. But I don't think people are bringing it.
Right. So this is part of what I love to bring to a conversation, because when so many people think they're broken, Lisa. And one of the things that I love to help people to shift is there's health here now. There's health here now. We have to recognize the health that exists. This was the very first thing I ever learned when I studied energy medicine 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whenever it was. First class, first thing that they said, we're looking for health. And I was like, huh? What? Yeah. We're looking for health. And so one of the things that I love to help people to realize is, for example, we're bringing our hearts to work. We don't have to be so scared about what that looks like, because it's already happening. So, to settle into the fact that our bodies are already here. I hear that we'd like to have the conversation about how the bodies don't come to the tech world, and they're here. There's health in that. Anyway, I love to shift the conversation to health. And so when we say, for example, to a leader, I understand that you're concerned that somebody might cry. There's health in that. You might not know how to handle it. There's health in that, knowing what we can and we cannot handle. We have a lot of clients who hire our company to come in and be the people who they can say, oh my God, somebody's crying, call them. That's okay. That's okay. Because what happens is those companies watch us, they mentor with us, they learn from us, and they become a person who can sit with any uncomfortable thing that happens. There's so much untapped potential I know you know this, oh, it's so good, in our hearts, in our guts, in our souls, in those dirty words that we don't say in tech, right? There's so much health, wisdom, money, potential, like all of that stuff that exists in those places. And really, once we learn to hold difficult conversations, and as leaders be able to better than tolerate, love the possibility of difficult sensations, thoughts, emotions coming up, and being able to stand there in that, oh my God, there's so much power that exists. Yeah,
I actually, paying attention to my body, I have goosebumps on the back of my neck right now as you're talking, because there was a time when I didn't believe that. I didn't, right? I was like, nope, buttoned up, keep it all together, don't have feelings, don't talk about infertility and struggles and doctor's appointments and dying moms and, life outside of work, right? And then there was a time when I realized that the more, as a leader, the more I could share, the more I chose to intentionally share what's happening, the more I was relatable and people would trust me with their own things, right? And I know this question, how do you feel right now, was something that was so foreign to me. It's actually what led me to burnout. I wasn't in tune with how I felt.
Yes.
And my rebound from burnout had to do with the question I ask myself every day is, how do I want to feel? And what will I do to feel that way? And that even before we got on, I said, how do you want to feel when the interview's over? Right. It's a profound question where it helps you make decisions that are in line with, the goals you set have feelings underneath them, people. You want a feeling, right? So I've learned this over time. And for anyone listening today who's just petrified of asking this question, even though you can see you have an employee who's, or even a leader who's really struggling, and you're just like, I'll just ignore it. And how's your weekend?
Yeah,
How's that project going? And get out of it quick.
exactly.
What's your double dog dare? I double dog my clients all the time, to
I
lean into it.
double dog dare you to just try it once and shut the fuck up when you do it. So you're going to ask that question and you're going to shut up. That's it. And then, is there a triple dog dare after that?
Oh,
double dog dare, triple dog dare.
Oh, girl. Yeah.
Just pay attention to what you feel in your body. I don't even care if you're listening to the person, to be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't matter. It matters on the other side when you're working towards mastery. In the beginning, it doesn't matter. Just shut up. They'll talk. Even if you're not paying attention to what they say, pay attention to what your body feels like. Lisa, I'm going to give you the top 2 questions you got to ask. You got to ask yourself, as you're listening to this difficult conversation, where in my body do I feel sensations? I'm going to say it might be uncomfortable. Where in my body do I feel uncomfortable right now? And what does it feel like? And I'm stopping there because not because there's not more. There's more inquiry. There's always more inquiry.
Yeah.
But those 2 questions are so powerful. They've changed people's lives. They've changed people's lives. So as a leader, you could say this to somebody else. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to say it to yourself.
Yeah. In other words, I'm the leader and I'm like, oh, so-and-so seems really stressed out. Okay, Ani double dog dared me. Here I go. Right. How do you feel? And then the question you're asking inside, the reflection you're having, the paying attention to is, where in my body do I feel reaction to this experience?
Yeah.
The second is, what does it feel? What does it feel like?
What does it feel like? Yeah.
What does it feel like? Yeah. So I will give a personal example of this, right?
Great.
So, and we'll let's use me so that people can really leverage this.
Yes.
So I'm already going to say, please take the double dog dare and then the triple dog dare behind it. And even if you don't start at work because it feels too vulnerable, start with someone you feel safe with. Your spouse who's upset, your kid who's having a moment, your best friend, your whatever, right? So I had done a video for our business, and Ani, you coached me through it. And I had I put up on LinkedIn that I had done this thing and I was scared and excited and all that. And I was really struggling with putting the actual video out there. And so I had a session with one of your coaches. And one of the things that showed up was how did I feel? Was nervous and scared. And where did I feel it was like the pit of my stomach? And we spent time exploring that. And I was like, okay, can we just tell me to push the button? Like, I got to go feel this now. Cause when you're scared, you're like, I don't want to feel it. But what it did is it helped me to better understand that what I was feeling wasn't really even about the video.
Yes.
That what I was feeling was something that I had felt before and that had never really processed. And so it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like not taking care of a wound.
Yes, it festers. That's exactly right. People want the easy button and they want the pill. And I've got to tell you, like, this is the thing. Because if you take a pill, you end up having all kinds of other things that go on with that, right? Because it's like we watch it on television. They say it could cause all kinds of crazy ass stuff.
Yeah.
Right? This is actually the pill. And the thing is, it's not the thought of fear that scares us. It's not the thought of doing something that scares us. It's what it feels like that scares us. So when we really think about this, like, just everybody take a pause for just a second, time out. Really, we're all really smart people. Logically think about this. A sensation, is that scary?
Right.
That it's stopping us? And the answer is yes, and that's okay. Remember, we're finding health. You said something really important about finding safety. That is important because these sensations that we feel, these emotions, whatever we want to call them, feelings, somewhere in our perception, we're perceiving them as a threat. And it's actually safety that helps us to reprogram our nervous system so that we don't see those things as a threat anymore and they're not scary anymore. That's real. Yeah, so that safety is really important. And we don't come from a society that creates safety. We come from a society that creates war and violence and terror and things like that. Look back at the hundreds of years in our human history that lives in our DNA. I believe it's our responsibility now to start to create safety for people.
I think it is absolutely our responsibility. And what I characterize tech as and why I'm doing what I do is it's the always on, never good enough, will replace you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And so if your amygdala is hijacked and you don't feel safe, how can you possibly innovate or have awesome tape outs or quality of results when you're just worried about job security and not being found out that you might be human? Again, it has to be turned upside down. And so
exactly.
That's why I made the comment for the folks that are taking the double dog dare, like practice safe in a safe place first to build it. Like, don't go to your CEO and be like, how do you feel? And then, that's the place to start, right? Or your customer.
Yeah.
Right? Go where you can build the muscle and have safety and just the experience.
Yeah, maybe you talk about this. This is a trauma-informed kind of way of doing things, where we're actually talking about a window of tolerance and opening this window. So, this is all based on really important theoretical stuff here that we're talking about.
Dude, and this is why I wanted to have you here, because look at the conversation we're already having, right? We're talking about being human, the heart's coming to work anyway, so why not leverage it and, engage it?
Yeah.
And I know so much anecdotal information about the brain gut connection and like what that really does for us. So when you think about those tech leaders and individual contributors working remotely right now, nights and weekends for customer success, family dynamics going on, eating whatever's nearby, shoving whatever food they can in for energy, not sleeping well, which is basically the recipe, which was my burnout, which was not taking care of myself. What insight, tips, guidance, talk to me before burnout.
Totally. Hey, if you only want to be using 5% of your people's potential, go keep doing what you're doing. Not a problem.
I fucking love you so much. Say it again.
If you only want to be using 5% of your people's potential, keep doing what you're doing. It's totally fine. Mm-hmm. Nobody's trying to make you do anything different. It's okay. Yeah. Keep it up. It's fine. Unless that's not fine with you.
Yeah. So if they wake up to this question, and that wake up is the wrong word. So listen, this is all real time. So let me choose my words more intentionally. It's not wake up. It's like awaken. There's a difference, right? Like leaning into that question. Really only 5%. So it's not like wake up like, oh, I'm asleep at the wheel. You're not. You're doing the best you can with what you know, and you are where you are. But we're now saying, hey, there's a better way, right? Yeah. We're talking about motivation for success. If they say, wait, only 5%, I want at least 10. Let's not even say they want 100, which we know everyone's going to try and shoot for the moon, right? But even to move the needle to the 10% mark, what's one thing they can do today?
You ready for this? Yeah. So you just said something really brilliant. It's not about, you're welcome. It's not about wake up. It's about awaken. Think about the difference in terms of waking up means an external stimulus probably caused something in me to open up.
Yep.
No, what you're inviting is awaken, which means there's something in us, in you. And so for the leaders, I'm going to challenge you. What's going on with you? How do you feel? And I was just a little cheeky when I said that, but let me wipe that smirk off my face for a second and really get into my own center here. And really, how do you feel? Truly, I'm asking you, so you can pretend that I'm asking you that question and answer that. Because when a leader is tapping into their potential, you can't help but awaken that potential in others. And I didn't say wake them up.
Yeah.
That's disempowering. It's disempowering. It keeps, and this is one of the reasons why leaders don't want to take the challenge and don't want to take the call to wake up, because let's face it, that keeps a leader in a dependent situation where somebody needs me. to do something and fix the problems. And no one wants, and by the way, like no one wants you to be in that position. Everybody really does want to find their own power and purpose. There is a very, very small percentage of the population that actually wants to suck off your energy. Almost everybody really wants to find their own potential, because that's when we really feel fulfillment. And when we feel filled within ourselves, we want to collaborate. We want to make a contribution, right? So the first thing that a leader can do is really ask themselves, how do I feel? Pretend I'm asking, how do you really feel? And start there. Because if you can find some kind of muck or yuck that exists within you and start to look at that, and like you said, Lisa, what patterns am I perpetuating here that I really, that is my wake up call to, like, it's the knock, knock, knock. I'm sure you had little knocks on your door before you had, you know, the heart attack stuff, right? Before you get hit by the 2x4. Yeah. Before you get hit by a 2x4, what is the?
Yeah, I call them whispers, right? If you can hear the whispers, they don't turn into raging screams, right?
Yes,
and the whispers, I mean, what I've learned is that with a little bit of quiet and reflection. So even that one question, how do I feel? You know, when I think about, I'll just go here because this is so organic. It's coming out. So many times I've either worked with clients or in my own life had moments of feeling triggered, right? I mean, that's part of life, right? And the power is in the pause. And we all say that, we all know, but boy, when you're triggered and you want to discharge and feel better and get some dopamine release and make somebody else feel crappy, boy, like there's such a power in that. But what I've learned is that even just noticing that trigger in the moment, and even, doing some deep breathing, adding your question to that, how do I feel? And even just having the clarity to say, I'm feeling triggered, is so much helpful than having to have like the perfect answer of, I'm really pissed off. No. Oh, wait, I'm feeling triggered, or my therapist always calls it dysregulation, right?
Yes.
You're acting dysregulated. That's a dysregulated moment, right? I was like, well, I call that a trigger. What the fuck is dysregulation now? Can we pick a word, right? My whole point of all of it is, when you're not grounded or feeling balanced and capable of like managing yourself, that's your pause moment, right?
Yes.
Because my question for you is, what if they don't know how they feel? Like, am I on the right track when I notice for myself trigger and I just like pause for a minute? Or maybe there's a better way? I don't know.
Well, you just said something really powerful when you said, even if I just pause and say, I'm feeling triggered. So if you say to yourself, I don't know, then say to yourself, I don't know. I want to really acknowledge we are having a very, very powerful, very, very potent, very, very deep conversation right now. And we are touching on the beginnings of this conversation. There is more to it than we can deliver in, an hour, 40 minutes, whatever, podcast.
Yep.
And what we're talking about is so potent, it can change lives. I think it's really important to have that conversation, because somebody might leave listening to this and think, I'll try that. How do I feel? Oh, I feel triggered. And then they just won't do it again. So the double dog dare in this one is do it 20 times, do it 10 times in one day. You can't just do it once and expect that you're going to change not just lifelong patterns for yourself. We are talking historical, since the beginning of time, patterns that live in our DNA. It might take a few times to ask yourself, that's okay.
Yeah. Even when you're writing code, you search for the bugs, then you fix them, then you find new bugs, then you fix them, right? I mean, it's always, is it a bug or an enhancement, right? So we all know when we're in that land. So, and it all translates.
It does.
Right. And when you think about time to results and quality of results, which we talk about all the time, the more we do this, the better our quality of results, the better our time to results, which results in this case is like being grounded and fully present. So then, awaken your greatness in whatever it is you're working on, right? It's
exactly. Yes, exactly. We're really looking for patterns here. We're really looking for patterns. So if you ask yourself 20 times tomorrow, how do I feel right now? And your answer 20 times is, I don't know. Boy, you have a lot of information now.
Yeah, because no judgment, right? Just simply
that's interesting. I don't know. 20 out of 20 times. That must be a pattern. Have I felt that before? Yep. I felt it before 5 minutes ago. I felt it yesterday. I remember when I was 7, I felt that. I felt it when I was a teenager. God, that must be a pattern. That's such good news. That's health, because we can do something about that. You can change a pattern. Awesome.
Yeah. We can rewrite your code. Rewrite our own code, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, this is really, really powerful stuff. And I want to make sure it's tangible for people. So when we think about, well, I want to know about your perspective on burnout. Like, have you, because this is going to help like connect the dots for me. So knowing what you know and knowing who you are and knowing my experience of you, I can't imagine there would ever be a time where Ani would just feel maxed out and burnt out and giving 5%. And then I'm like, well, what story am I telling myself? I invite you to share your thoughts and your own personal anecdotes on your own journey.
I knew you were going to ask me about burnout, Lisa, and I actually have been thinking about it for a few days. I do get overwhelmed and I do get stressed like everybody else because I'm human. And I use it as a feedback mechanism because I do operate on knocks rather than on brick walls that we run into for the most part. I have a brick wall story, but I'm going to tell you in a minute. But I've never experienced burnout. And I was actually a little embarrassed to come on here and tell you that. And I'm telling you this because as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about how it's people, first of all, humans love stories. Everybody loves stories. It's so wonderful to hear a story and think about those and just listen to them. They're wonderful. There are a lot of people who have heroes' journeys stories about burnout. My business partner, Brian, is one of them. He's got a story about super high blood pressure. And I feel a little bit like a fraud that I don't have a burnout story to tell you. That's really important. What kind of crazy, screwed up badge of honor belongingness is that pointing to in our society that I feel nervous to show up and say, I've never had that experience? Because the fact is, when I say that, I sound a lot less relatable. Somebody could be saying, she doesn't understand me. I've worked with tons of people who have experienced burnout. Stress has been stress and anxiety, what I help people with for like 30 years, right? So as I thought about the question about when I had experienced burnout, it made me remember the first time that I was introduced to energy medicine in college. And I was having a health crisis. And it was so profound for me that I wanted to know so much more about those whispers that you talk about and about how to make that an integrated part of my life for the rest of my life. And it's because I've listened to those whispers and taken that exploration, that journey, that exploration, that I think that I just really kind of live a pretty healthy existence where when I get to a place where I feel overwhelmed or stressed, I really take pretty good care of myself. So I was a college student, I was a junior, and I was experiencing rectal bleeding. And I went to the college health center and I told the nurse, who said to me, you must have cancer because college students don't have that problem. Can you imagine?
No, like my mouth just,
First of all,
what in the what? Yeah. What? The mama bear in me wants to go find that person right now and be like, are you effing crazy? That is not what you say to someone.
Right? And mama bear is a good thing to say, actually, because I was a kid away from my parents too, by the way. So, so that freaked me out. And she said, you should go see a doctor. So I did. And they did a scope and they found nothing. To which, well, first of all, before I went to the doctor said we should do a scope because that doesn't happen to college students. Okay, so that's 2, so they did the scope, they found nothing. And I remember being in that doctor's office, and him saying, we didn't find anything. We're going to have to do more testing. And I was like, no. I felt really betrayed. Felt really betrayed. So I went home to my dorm and I had a book on my bookshelf. Maybe you have read it, Carolyn Mace, Anatomy of the Spirit. Anywho, it's a classic in energy medicine. And I picked it up. My mother had given it to me. And in the cover, she said something to the degree of, I always knew you'd be a healer. It's something that like I even to this day kind of roll my eyes at, whatever, mom. Right? So I pick up the book and I started reading about it. It was about the energy system. And I read that perhaps when you're having a problem with your bottom, you're having something going on with your family. And I was having a massive issue with my family at the time. And like it said in there, if you resolve the issue with your family, maybe your problem with your bottom will go away. And so I'm 21 and I'm kind of pissed off and I will try anything. And I don't want to go back to that doctor and do whatever else he said. So I did. I called, I can't, now my mature self looks back at that kid and was like, girl, you are brave. I called my mother. I had the horribly difficult conversation I needed to have with her. I cried and cried and cried. I called my dad. I told him what happened and bleeding went away. Bleeding went away.
Yep.
And I needed to know whatever that was, because what that was, I needed to live the rest of my life like that. And I needed to help other people. So we all have whispers. Our body is always talking to us, and it's actually giving us really easy to read information. It really is. It's just
like your
very
best friend
easy.
that you just abuse all the time and ignore. Like, hello, buddy. Why, thank you for,
Yeah.
Them I'm ignoring. Yeah.
Yeah. And the best friend that like never goes away and is always there. Like, you know, for example, when people have problems with their feet, you might say metaphorically, or you're having trouble standing on your own 2 feet. This is not complicated.
Yep.
And yeah. And so when we start to really listen to those whispers, we don't have to get to a place where we are burned out. We will get to a place where we have to have difficult conversations.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
Yeah. First, thank you for that story. And thank you for taking the question so seriously and showing up so authentically. Because when we talk about trust and high performance, what you just modeled as a leader is like, here's where my expertise is and my experience, and here's where it's not. And I think so many times leaders feel like they have to have all the experience and have all the answers before they're qualified to lead. And you just showed that that's not true. I know it not to be true.
Yeah.
But I'm thrilled with your story.
Thanks.
I appreciate it on levels I'm not even sure I can articulate just yet, but it will show up in the conversation. The second thing I'd like to share with you, if I may, with your story, to connect the dots for myself and the listeners. There was a time when I was working crazy hours in my corporate gig, which 21 years at one company. I wouldn't call it a gig. I'd call it a lifetime, right? But I was having debilitating back pain, and it was horrible. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit. It was awful. And one of my colleagues had said, closed the door to my office and was like, "You're going to think I'm crazy, but I think you have financial fear."
Love it.
What? Yeah. What? Now listen, this is it. Him. It's a man looking around.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've been here. They're not going to find anything. This is all about financial worry. You've got to go read this book. It's called Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Own Life. Right? He looks around. This is in tech, right? And he's like, all right, I wasn't here. And then he leaves. And I'm like, what the hell was that? I don't even know. Financial fear, right? Well, I was in the middle of getting ready to buy my first house. I was petrified. I was a single person buying a condo in Cupertino. Everyone thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was crazy. It was so much money. Yeah. And of course I had financial fear. So I was like, I looked up the book. I'm like, holy crap. Well, then I'm like, hey, talk to me about migraines.
Exactly. What's this? What's that?
So I haven't read the Carolyn Miss, which I think I want to go get. But what I do want to, validate and say for you is that I can already prove in tech, there's people that know this because they were in my office.
Yes,
right?
they're there.
But people don't talk about this.
That's the problem.
It's like, oh, you're too woo-woo. When I told people I got married in Sedona, I had a colleague say, oh, you're woo-woo. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm just going to own it now. I believe in the mind, body, spirit connection. I believe, I'm witnessing and living it with even the back pain. And so I really, 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 I don't think I've ever talked about this piece before, but your story connected me back to that piece of my own truth that actually happened in tech with a colleague closing the door to not get caught for being too woo.
This is such an issue.
It's an issue.
And here's the deal. World Health Organization, 60 to 80% of people use natural, energetic, alternative methods as their primary source of healthcare. It's not,
profound.
It's not that it's not mainstream, folks. It's that we are not talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't let people get away with calling me woo anymore. I used to kind of get embarrassed or hope that people wouldn't. And at this point, I don't mind if somebody wants to label me as woo, but that's not how I see myself. I am very practical. I'm a very practical person.
Very practical, my friend. Yes.
To me, it makes perfect sense. Like, why on earth, if my knee hurts so bad and nothing happened, wouldn't I say to myself, what's up with that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's not crazy. That's practical.
Yeah. And even the doctor with my back never said, is there something going on in your life that they don't make the connection. They just stay in this lane.
Yes.
And so you're like, okay, well, I guess Vicodin, like, I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And they might say, well, let's go conservative and here's some physical therapy.
Right.
Right. But I'm like, why? When my doctor said you have Silicon Valley itis, that's not a real diagnosis, by the way. Right. Yeah. But he was the first time I had a Western professional medical doctor say to me, yeah, right.
Yeah.
You have Silicon Valley itis. It's the combination of all of this.
Yeah.
So it's manifesting in your body. And he's like, you need 3 months off and you better damn sleep. And I'm like, I can't take 3 months off. All right. I don't know part of that.
Yeah.
He almost fired me from my own medical leave because I worked anyway. Right. And he was like, last chance. Right. I was like, it takes me a while.
What a gift.
About the back pain.
What a gift. And that didn't have to be a doctor. You were going to a doctor, but I think what I'm really trying to relate to listeners is all of us can be this person who says, absolutely, how are you feeling? And you don't have to be a doctor. It was awesome that you found a doctor finally who was able to say those things. I'm a trained occupational therapist. Okay. Most professionals, therapists, doctors, whatever, are not trained to think like this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. So it could be the person who sneaks in the office and is looking around to change a life.
Right.
They're there. 60 to 80% of us are there. We're just not talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that stops today, my friend, on this show. We are going there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for your story and you sharing. And I'm really inspired that younger version of you had the capacity to hear the whispers, to know what's next, and to go have the conversation, even though it was difficult. Right. And to step into that. And so I think I don't want to miss out on that part, which is once you figure out how you're going to feel, or once you figure out how you feel, the action part and, moving through that door, opening that door, or looking in the mirror, or doing whatever, like that work is hard. I don't want to sugarcoat that. What would you like to say in that land for people to better understand? What's the realistic preview of once one says, oh, I'm feeling it in my stomach and it feels like I want to throw up, right? What should they expect, and how can they give themselves radical compassion and support?
Yeah, I'm really being with what you just said, because the truth is it is hard. It's hard as we as a society have been trained to see feelings.
You know what? Thank you for that. Go there. Yes. Call me on it. And let's really unpack that, because hard is in the eye of the beholder, right?
It's not even about calling you on it, Lisa, because I would have said the same thing. The same thing would have come out of my mouth. It's an and. I think that's what I want to say. Mm-hmm. It's hard because difficult emotions, crying, let's just use crying, mm-hmm. can be hard in our society. I just had a session with somebody who I work with, and it was hard because they led me through an exercise where I wanted so badly to laugh. And I was trying so hard not to laugh because I didn't want them to think I was laughing at them.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that laughter is a release of energy that is stored and pent up. And that's when I keep saying DNA, it's in our DNA. What I'm talking about, basically, we've got these bubbles of held crap in our DNA that when we can release them are not there anymore. They're in our cells, it's in our body, it's in our muscle tissues. We've got these, I mean, let's face it, all of us have felt tension, right? Tension is a holding of tissue. But that what can we, when we can release it, we go, ah. But I felt nervous to laugh in that moment because what is she going to think of me? What am I projecting on it? Like all of these things. That is hard, and it's not. So what does it look like? Usually what it looks like is a release of energy. Release of energy comes in a few forms. It comes in heat. Whew, it's hot here all of a sudden.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Laughter, crying,
Mm-hmm.
sighs. That's about it. You know, like that's what it's going to look like. And then after that, you're new. Have you ever had the experience, Lisa, because I sure have, of working with a client and they have a release of an energetic holding, right? Some kind of issue, like I realize I'm using the word energy, of an issue they're holding, let's just say that they then release. Their eyes look brighter, don't they?
Oh, every time.
There's brightness that is
There's
emanating from within them. And I look at a client when that happens and I'm like, hi.
Mm-hmm. There you are.
There you are.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. That's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
When you stand present with what we have taught is horrible, challenging, hard, disgusting. There's so many words we can put around it. And believe me, I have felt I could tell you story upon story about all of the times I've felt that in my body, or in my being, in, my story. I've felt shame and guilt and all of that, yuck, disgust, all of that stuff about myself, about other people in my life. On the other side of that is fulfillment, is brightness, is lightness, is love and compassion.
Yeah.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
Mm-hmm. When you were talking about the bright eyes, I saw a client who I just even met with yesterday who really, they have these forms we fill out before we work, and they, they'll write down what they want to talk about. And I always say, what is it you're not willing to bring up? Is my little invitation to put it on paper anyway, right? I had one client say, I feel like my marriage is in a rut. I am not a marriage counselor, right? The other client yesterday was like, I don't think I like my boss anymore. Right. And I was like, okay, so, they don't want to bring that up. They don't want to talk about it. But if we don't get to that, what you're not willing to bring up, we can't get to the other stuff. So I always start with like celebrations, raise the energy. What are you proud of? That, and then we go, I'm like, okay, so why don't we want to talk about the husband? Do we want to go there? No, working from home and seeing each other every day. It's, kind of boring. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that. Right. Cause that's in the way of them getting their job done. Yes. And once that was done, the eyeballs were bright. And I thought, I'm not a therapist. We're very clear on that.
Yeah.
And if how am I feeling? I'm obsessed that my relationship's boring right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so you made me think about that. And, I've always had that question, but I've never thought about the gift in that question the way I am now with what the conversation we're having, because it's kind of your double dog dare is, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Because what you're not willing to bring up is like, there's a feeling you got going on you don't want to acknowledge.
Yeah. You're saying to that person, hey, I'm available to have the conversation that other people aren't available to have with you.
Yeah.
And you might not be available to having with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm available.
Yeah. Yeah. And this concept of like holding space, it's not, people are like, oh, that's woo, holding space. I'm like, no, that's being human and present with someone.
Leaders do it all the time.
Exactly.
All the time.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's what that was for me too. I'm like, oh, so I just had my own personal epiphany. Real time, people, capture it here. Lisa had an epiphany. Right. What's something people don't know about you?
Actually, I was a professional performer, and this was a part of my story about not having burnout that I forgot to say. So I'm really glad you asked me that. I had my first professional performing gig at 9. It was in Philadelphia at a dinner theater, and I would go on the nights and the weekends. And then I left school and started having private tutoring for full-time working in the performing arts when I was 10.
My daughter is about to be 10. I have a very clear image of what 10 looks like. That's a big damn deal.
It's a big damn deal, and it's really, really young. And so as I was reflecting around this idea of like, wow, I haven't had burnout. What is that really about for me? I remembered that I've been working since I was 9 professionally, right? And here's the cool thing about this. So the subconscious mind is just about programmed for the first 7 years of our life. The subconscious mind is the part of our mind that runs our patterns. It's the one that's just going all the time, running everything, running the show. And so when I think about work, for me, before the age of 7, I observed not just observed, but like learned in all capacities, absorbed the information from my parents. My dad actually worked in tech.
Really?
Yeah, not his passion. He wanted to work with people. He wanted to work with children who had developmental disabilities. And he was told that that wasn't a good career for him for whatever reason. He didn't go into it. He worked in tech. He went to a job that he wasn't passionate about. He did his work and he came home. He went there, he did his work, and he came home day after day. And that's what I absorbed from my father for the first 7 years of my life. Go to a job that, you know, you're not really passionate about. You don't have to be ambitious. You bring plenty of money home, and that's that. And then my mother was she kind of floated between some retail jobs every now and then. She owned a store in our town. That was fun for her. So she was kind of like the entrepreneurial spirit person. And so I had both of those things going for me as before I got to the place where I was a worker. And so I was a worker at 9, and I really solidified for myself in my young life that work can be fun. Like that came, I think, from my mother. Work can be fun, and I can just show up and make plenty of money. I think that came from my father. And so I didn't land in a corporate America regular job until I graduated from college, and I landed in healthcare, and I hated it with a capital H. hated it. I couldn't figure out why. And I only was there for about 4 years before I became an entrepreneur.
Wow.
Yeah. It was intolerable to my system. And so
did you ever figure out what it was that made it intolerable for you?
it's not part of my programming.
Got it. Yep.
It is not part of my programming. It was intolerable to me. So as I was reflecting on your burnout question, I think one of the reasons that I have never experienced that is if I hadn't left that job and gone out on my own, you better damn well believe I would have experienced burnout. I was probably on that train that I got off. And I had a good excuse. I got pregnant with my daughter, and I decided never to go back. And I just started seeing clients privately instead, and that grew. So I used that as an opportunity to hop off. And I don't talk about my performing career a whole lot, mostly because I find it kind of like it's not applicable. It's not that I don't find it applicable. I actually see a lot, like I was just talking about some of the tie-ins of my patterns and conditioning. I see the time, but people get like, they get off on a tangent about it because they want to know like, oh, like, what did you do? Who did you meet? Do you know famous people? Do you still know famous people? Like, then that's the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
And to me,
that's so surface.
Yeah, that's not an interesting conversation to me. Like I did do really cool stuff. I'd love to tell you about what it's like to eat cereal after you do a cereal commercial and you've eaten cereal for 3 hours.
That's burnout in a whole other world.
That's burnout. That's cereal burnout. That happened to me.
Cereal with a C, not an S. You know what I mean? Oh, Ani, this is fascinating. You know, when I think about the work that you and I have done together, and I've seen you with other people because of the, organization that I belong to, where I'm, growing my business and, working on myself. Cause I always believe a coach should have a coach. You know what I mean? Like, that's just like a no brainer for me. What lights you up about the work that you do?
It's so much fun. I just love it. I love seeing the light turn on behind other people's eyes. I think that really, at the end of the day, is my super why. There's no reason why every single person can't have the light on behind their eyes. We see folks that, you go to the supermarket and you actually look at the cashier in the eyes and notice no one's home, for example. There's no reason why we shouldn't see the light behind everyone's eyes. So every time I get to see that happen for someone else, and then in my job, a lot of the times what I'm doing is I'm helping other people who help people to do that for their people. So I know when the bright lights turn on for a leader, they're going and impacting thousands or more people's lives and turning their lights on. Damn, that's so good.
Yeah, and the ripple effect of that. I had a visual that just happened when you talked, because it's the leader, the team, it's the leader's family, the team's family, it's the customers, it's the colleagues, it's the community. Like the ripple effect is magnificent when you can. This is just the vision I had. I saw like a little drop and then whoop.
Yes.
So yeah, and I can see it in you every time I see you in whatever capacity, whether it's one-on-one with me or in the group settings that we're in. I just want to tap into something here. It's showing up for me when we think about the light turning on. So I'm thinking about the women in tech right now who are leaving at a tremendous rate with the compressed requirements that society has not only forced on them, but that the world has just required right now, with lack of childcare and education, where we can really support people while they want to continue working. So choices are being made that are really tough.
Totally.
And these women are like these amazing, bright, energetic, optimistic leaders when they start out in tech, right? Because like, I made it, right? And then we're going, and then I can't do it all, right? And then something happens. And I'm just curious if you could, have every CEO in tech listen to this right now, and you would, you have a piece of advice for them about retaining and creating an environment where they're not losing this key component of their, not just labor force, but the DNA of their business, right? The diversity of thought, and from programming to product development to just leadership. What would you, if they were all sitting here right now, what advice would you have for them to stop this and to create an environment where they can have women in leadership in tech thrive?
Yeah. I actually wouldn't share a piece of advice. If someone said to me, Ani, you got to help me with client retention. I'm losing talent. They're leaving. I see what's happening. It's hard. I would say, why? I've got to know why they care.
Say more. You would say why?
I would say why. They'd say, help me with client retention. And I would say, why? And that question would cause them to pause for a second. And I don't know what they'd say next, Lisa, because everybody's going to say something different. And that's okay. Right? I think it's really okay for every CEO of every company to have a different answer to that question and go about it maybe even differently. But, part of my point too is we've got to ask questions. When I felt like a leader was when I stopped telling people what I thought they should do.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. So the question is why? Why does it matter? Why do you care? Why is it important to you? Like all of the underneath whys that can then come through that, right?
Yeah, because I can help. But why does it really matter? I had a CEO that I was working with, and they asked me that same question in a little bit different disguise, but it was basically that same exact question. And I said, why? And they thought about it and took a few conversations to really get to the why. And here's what was really going on. This person knew that they had grown up in a toxic culture in professionally, and that they were promoting toxicity, and they didn't know how to get out of that. But what really came through was, I'm not being a good person to my family. That's what really came through from a personal level, why it mattered personally to them. And I was able to really like, give me more information about what that means. You know, I'm not being the husband I want to be to my wife. I've got this grandchild that has special needs and I never have enough time, all of this stuff. Fast forward, this CEO now calls themselves a healer.
Wow.
I'm personally not attached to that being that. For me, it doesn't resonate for me. Even though I have people call me that too, it doesn't resonate for me. But for them, it was resonant.
Mm.
It was really resonant, and they are going forward in their lives in a totally different way. But there was a real personal connection there, that they knew that they weren't really being the person they wanted to be in all aspects of their life. And they weren't seeing the connection, by the way, of who I am at home and who I am at work, that we were able, just from a why do you care? And I'm sincerely curious kind of question, to put those pieces back together. And just, you know, bring this back a little bit to what we were talking about in the beginning. I believe that putting those pieces back together, who I am at work and who I am at home, is the same person. I have a mind and I have a body. It's the same person. When we bring this back to a conversation of one human being to one human being, and knowing that the two of us impact the one experience that we're all having together, that's the truth. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm letting that settle for anyone listening, including myself right now, because, you know, this advice question, people usually have an answer. You're the first person that I've asked that actually said, I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to, you know, ask a question instead. And I just want that to land for everybody as we think about ourselves as leaders, because we all have the wisdom inside us. We just need the space to like awaken to it and let it come out and like safely figure out what that next step is. And you just modeled that even with that story. That's an embodiment of an experience and your own knowledge versus someone saying, well, you know, go hire more women.
Yeah.
You know, get more part-time jobs. You know, get a board member who, you know, can speak to it and fix your PR. Do you know what I mean? Like, you went to the essence of the person sitting there across from you in this proverbial, you know, forum we just built, and let them reflect on it. And you're leading them to their own knowledge and wisdom. And I think that's just a huge gift. And I don't want that to get missed when I just, you know, step to the next. It's very profound.
What I don't want to also get missed is that before we pressed record, you asked me how I wanted to feel at the end of this conversation. And I had to, that was a great question. How do you want to feel at the end of this conversation? I had to stop and think about it. You set up the space for that to happen by asking me that question. Mm-hmm. And I said to you, I want to feel present, because I could choose to get high on my soapboxes, but I really want to be present with you. And that's really at the core of successful leadership, I believe. Have you seen Bain & Company's research about this, Lisa?
I have. I couldn't quote it for you right now, but yeah, if you got to throw it down.
Bain & Company did some research about the most powerful attributes of an inspiring leader. And they found that there are many attributes, 30 something, maybe 33, I don't remember the exact number, but there's one at the center of all of them that every single inspiring leader had. So there's these other attributes that some people have, some people don't, some people have, some people don't. The core of every inspiring leader is this one thing: centeredness. Centeredness. And centeredness, I'm not going to get it just right, and that's fine. They described it as an ability to be with like whatever is coming up, and just be. I wish I could remember exactly what they said, but again, it doesn't matter. It's this idea that there's things active and I'm holding on to my center. Centeredness is at the heart. And I think that, for me, I would have told you that I was a highly present person before I felt like a leader. But it was really when I could ask questions in centeredness myself and not feel like I had that expert cap on, but to just, it's a being state, right? I mean, you were asking me some questions about like, raising energy and things like this before. And, for me, it's really coming to that place of centeredness that is so, so important, because when you're centered as a leader or as a person who's talking to another person, it doesn't matter what becomes active or activated. You're centered.
Yep. Yeah. I might change my question for season 2 on my Spotify playlist now. We'll have one playlist, which we're working on, raising your vibe when you're feeling, in the slump or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I have a playlist for centeredness just based on what you're saying, because I agree. I know what you're saying to be true from my own experience and just at my soul level.
Yeah.
Because even as a parent, I'm a better parent when I'm centered. As a sister, a friend, a mom, a leader, a business owner, right? Decision making and clarity in that. And who I know, the people that I want to follow are the ones that can, go into that eye of the storm with me, but not be spazzing and freaking out.
Yes.
Being like, hey, we got this. What's the right next thing to do? What matters right now? That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
We're in the eye of the storm. What matters most? Hold hands so none of us fly out the side. Okay, great.
Yeah.
What's next? And I think that there's a beautiful gift in what you just said when it comes to thinking about, there's this concept I've learned of called guide on the side versus sage on the stage. Okay? As a leader, what role, what hat are you wearing? Right? And I believe that the guides on the side have the high performing teams. The sage on the stage have a lot of people who do what they're told and are in that center.
Yes.
And so the centeredness, I think, lives with the guide on the side.
Yeah, agree.
I haven't seen the centeredness with the sage on the stage because it comes from self-doubt and fear. And I have to know it all to be it all. Always on, never good enough, will replace you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Guide on the side's like, take it or leave it. I'm bringing my best.
Yes.
And I'm bringing my peeps with me. And so your centeredness comment, I would like to start the playlist today. I'm throwing you off because I was always going to ask a question about raising your vibe, but let's start the playlist, Ani. Is there a song that we could give as a tangible experience for people who want to remember to be more centered, and to just even energetically give them that experience through music? Is there one that comes to mind for you? Pop quiz, right?
No, I know it. It's just, it's one of my favorite songs. Like top, really, I might even say one. If you ask my kids what my favorite song would be, because my kids are teenagers and they make me do these funny games sometimes, like, what's your number one this? And I'm like, I don't know. And they would say that this is it. James Taylor, There's Something in the Way She Moves.
Okay.
My God, that song, to me, I feel fine anytime she's around me. She's around me almost all the time. I feel well. It's about feeling good just because somebody's there. It's about feeling good just because somebody's there. That's what you're talking about.
I'm hearing this song through a whole new lens right now. I can hear him right now. Okay. Yeah.
She's been with me now quite a long, long time, and I feel fine.
I took that even to my heart. Like my heart could be the she, whatever. There's so many she's in that statement.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, my coach, my sister in world-changing ways, I want to say thank you and express gratitude to you for your time today and for all that you've brought, for bringing your energy and your stories and your tangible, practical things that leaders can do right now. We talked about asking yourself the questions, practicing in a safe place to say, how do you feel? Recognizing when you're triggered, taking the deep breaths. We've given you a song. Like there's so much here. But if people, well, I'm sure people are going to want to know more. How can people find you? I mean, what's the easiest way to find you?
Yeah, newwayofhealth.com is the best place to go to find us, because there you'll find all of our brands. You know, you'll find the work that we do with a few different kinds of people, and you'll find out about our theory and our philosophy, our methodology. That's the word. You'll find out about our methodology that we use to train leaders and coaches.
I love it. Newwayofhealth.com, right? All right.
Yep.
Ani Anderson, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing your gifts with this audience today. And I can't wait to see the comments coming in when people are like, oh my gosh, I asked the question and I didn't die or explode and everything was okay. And someone cried and I held space. And, you know, imagine moving from that 5%. And that's my favorite thing you did was, well, if you're fine with 5%, I just love it. I love it. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for your time. And everybody
Lisa.
go check out Ani at newwayofhealth.com. You want to know more. I know you do. All right. Make it a great day, everyone.
That was great content, but let's be honest. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step at rebootwithlisa.com.